I'm here today to try to help you navigate the Social Security disability process. Some of you, I understand, applied and were granted benefits right off the bat. And really, I applaud you because that is a very, very difficult thing to do, to have the government understand your first go-around, the seriousness of your illness and how debilitating it can be. Obviously, it's not for everyone. But for some people, it makes it impossible to work. And for those of you who are thinking about applying or have applied and have been denied, I want to give you information about the process. The first thing is, what is a disability for purposes of Social Security? What they look at is whether you have a medically determinable impairment, and fibromyalgia is considered that, or a combination of impairments, a group of illnesses that have prevented you from working for at least a year or are expected to prevent you from working for at least a year. And so basically, if because of your illness you haven't been able to work for a year or you don't think you'll be able to work for a year, you're eligible for potentially one or both programs. And there are two programs. One is called Social Security Disability Insurance Benefits. And if you've worked basically 5 out of the last 10 years, or some combination of 5 out of the last 10 years, you'll be eligible for that program. Because what you're doing when you're working is you're paying into the Social Security system, and it's supposed to be there for you if you become disabled. A lot of people will tell me that they actually feel badly about applying, and I really try to impart to people, you have worked, you've paid this money into the government, and if now you can't work because of your disability, it is yours, and you should be entitled to it, and you should apply for it. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are to be eligible for this program. If you've paid into the program, then you're eligible for it. So for example, if Bill Gates became disabled, he would still be eligible for this program. The second program is called Supplemental Security Income, and it's for people who are poor. And so, and it's for people who are very poor. And many people qualify for both because, one, they have worked, but they haven't made very much, and they currently are in dire financial straits. And so the only requirement is that you have very limited financial resources. What I typically tell people is if you don't know which programs you're eligible for, you can go ahead and apply for both, or you can talk to a lawyer and they can help you sort out which programs you're eligible for. There's a small group of people where they wouldn't be eligible, and I'll give you an example. It would be someone who is a homemaker and has a spouse, and the homemaker stayed home and raised the children but never paid into the system because they didn't work outside the home, and the spouse makes too much money for her to qualify or him to qualify for supplemental security income. And in that situation, that's a group of people where it is hard to get benefits. So there's these two programs, and how do you apply? Well, there's you can go to your nearest Social Security office, or you can apply online. And the thing about the application is, the most important thing is to put down all of the problems you're having. So, you know, a lot of times, if fibromyalgia is the thing that's the biggest concern of your mind and the thing that's most disabling, you don't want to ignore the other issues because Social Security will look at everything. So if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, put it on your application. If you have headaches, even if you associate your headaches with fibromyalgia, Social Security may not. Put it on your application. If you have insomnia, again, maybe associated with fibromyalgia, put it on your application. Be as inclusive as possible on your application. Once you've applied, Social Security will start gathering your medical records, and so you want to be very complete as to who your doctors are. And it's very important to be seeing a doctor regularly in terms of your best chances of winning Social Security, because Social Security thinks that if you're not actually in treatment, your illnesses probably aren't that debilitating. Now that becomes very difficult for people who have limited means, but the best that you can, find a supportive doctor and start seeing your doctor regularly. Now, the approval rating at the initial application level is only 40%. And I have to tell you, I have seen many, many people, and I've had many clients come to me with fibromyalgia who have applied, who clearly cannot work, and they're denied. That doesn't happen to everyone, but the younger you are, it's more likely that you'll be denied at the initial level. And there's a certain random element to it. And I would also say that there's probably a certain bias that some of you may have experienced when it comes to fibromyalgia. And unfortunately, it exists in Social Security as well, where people see the illness and think that it's not so debilitating as to prevent someone from working, when in fact, it can be. And so it's very frustrating and it's very painful when people are denied at the initial application level because they just feel so misunderstood and rejected. But if that happens to you, you should know that you are not alone and that it happens to many, many people who ultimately get the benefits that they deserve. So if you're denied at the initial application, and let me say this too, at the initial application you can do it yourself, you can have an attorney do it for you. It really depends on what you can handle at the moment and how complete you can be. You ask for reconsideration. And I should say before this, Social Security can send you to a doctor, and they can send you to go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They can send you to see just more of a general practitioner type doctor, and you need to comply with those evaluations and go. And what I tell people is to just do the best you can to, not minimize your problems, not exaggerate your problems, just be completely honest, because that's what your medical records are going to show as well. So you ask for reconsideration, and literally you're asking for reconsideration so that someone may have denied you, and literally your application can go to the person next to them. So it's like, Susie just reviewed your application 8 months ago. I mean, it can take 6 to 8 months for them to review your application. It goes to Bob in the next cubicle. So you know what that means. That kind of means that if you were denied the first time, you're going to be denied the second time. And something like only 15% of people who ask for reconsideration are granted reconsideration. And so you're very likely at the next level to be denied as well. And at that point, many people really give up. And if you take nothing away from today, I would really urge you the one thing I want you to take away is to stick with the process. Because ultimately, if you can't work and you have a supportive doctor, it is very likely you're going to get your benefits at the end of the day. But people get so frustrated with the process, and it takes so long, and they give up. I mean, they just say, to heck with it, or they just can't persevere. And then 2 or 3 years later, they're starting all over again and applying. And that you lose time that way, and you can actually lose money that way too. Because this way, even though you've applied and now you've been denied and a year has gone by, once you ultimately win, you can receive payment from the date of your application or even a year prior to your application. So it's not like the delay means nothing. Ultimately, you can get an award for that period of delay.